to call this meeting of the Weare School Board to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jackie, do we have amendments to the agenda?
We have an additional personnel, a nomination for Michael Costanzo.
So thank you all for coming. There has been a ton of communications this particular week. There's been some misunderstanding, I think, about some changes on the agenda, so I've asked Jackie to speak to her requested addition. We won't act on it until after public comment, but this will at least give you some concept of what we're going to talk about. Go ahead.
So I let the board know on Sunday that, and communicated with the community that we were looking at 2 clusters within Centerwoods. And I also asked for it to be added to the agenda. And so that's what we did. It's having a tremendous impact on how we're operating school, and I'd like to speak to that a bit. As we planned for reopening, we had high hopes that this year would be easier than last. While it's been wonderful to be back, and there have been many, many positive things that have happened this year, I can say that this year is already more difficult and more stressful than last year. Just 3 weeks into the year, we are experiencing exhaustion and burnout that's generally limited to right before vacation in February. The COVID response plan we brought to you in June and then again in August was developed, as you know, based on DHHS recommendations. The plan was designed to be responsive to the impact of COVID-19 on our local community. When community transmission in the county and cases in the school were low, things would operate fairly normally. As transmission and cases increased, so would mitigation strategies. At the August meeting, the board voted to make masks optional. I believe this significantly altered the effectiveness of the plan we submitted. Today, we completed the 15th day of school, and we've been responding to COVID in our schools within the parameters set by the school board. Last year, we had 13 cases with exposure in the building in the Weare School District. So far this year, in the 15 days, we've had 15 cases with exposure in the buildings. There were certainly more cases last year, but I'm specifically talking about exposure within the building. This year, we are able to have exposed close contacts remain in school because they aren't required to go into quarantine. This is great because there is less learning loss and they get to remain in the classroom. However, people who have contracted COVID are more likely to transmit it to others. As you'll hear from Jess and Sean, many students are losing instructional time. Our absentee rates of staff and students is high and increasing. We have many people with COVID and many people monitoring symptoms. We are struggling to cover classes and are spending an exorbitant amount of time in the contact tracing process with all of the cases we are dealing with. There are many things that we aren't able to do right now because we're too busy dealing with COVID. For example, there is a state program that would allow us to conduct COVID testing with parent permission at school that we're unable to pursue at this time because our nursing offices are too busy responding to cases. Contrary to some of the accusations made on social media, I am not fear-mongering or being sneaky. I feel an obligation, in fact, to be as upfront as possible about the difficulties we are facing right now in the district. I'm charged with running the school district, and right now we have very few tools to respond to what is probably an outbreak at Centerwoods. It's my duty to communicate the issues we are having with the board, and it's the board's express purpose to deal with those issues. After an entire weekend spent with the administrators working through multiple cases in the 2 clusters, I feel an obligation to come back to the board and ask you to revisit your plan. We've been striving to get back to normal, and we're actually currently in a less than normal environment in school. If we continue on the path we're on, I anticipate we'll have more cases related to the clusters at Centerwoods. As I walked around Centerwoods yesterday, I noticed a number of changes that had already been implemented. Morning meeting was generally not happening on the rug. Instead, it was with students in their desks. We have divided recesses into classroom cohorts. There's less group work going on. Our instructional practices are impacted by the need to implement the additional mitigation strategies like distancing. I'm not seeking universal masking all the time. Instead, we need a way to respond to the actual cases in our schools so we can get transmission under control. The John Stark School District also altered the plan that I presented to them. The masking plan they adopted took community spread out of the decision-making process for masks. This means that, like in Weare, John Stark began the school year with optional masking and schools operating relatively normally. Yesterday at Stark, we identified a cluster of cases. This means that 3 cases were found to have been related and transmission happened in school. The identification of a cluster pushed Stark into the next level of our COVID response plan, just like it has done in Weare. We've increased social distancing, increased hand washing, increased cleaning. At Stark, we've also implemented targeted mask use. For the next 14 days, members of the John Stark community will wear masks while in transit and when they can't be at least 3 feet from one another. If they have been identified as a close contact, they have been instructed to wear masks while in the building. At the conclusion of the 14 days, if the impact of COVID in our schools have decreased, mask wearing will return to optional. I'd like to turn it over to Sean to talk about the impact specifically at Weare Middle School.
We currently have 95 students on our illness tracker. This is after spending only about 8% of our school year in the building, but equals 16% of the total number from last year. If this trend were to continue, we would see over 1,200 student names land on the tracker. We don't have that many students. Students' names land on it multiple times because of different reasons. Each of those names represents time spent contacting families, making calls, and in some cases identifying positive cases. Those on the tracker, due to close contact here in our school, represents time spent reviewing individual schedules, seating charts, and transportation. All of that time is taken away from other areas that have a ripple effect on staff and students. Our biggest concern, of course, is the impact on students' access to instruction. Absenteeism is at approximately 12% due to potential COVID symptoms, monitoring because of close contact, or positive results. As parents and families have been notified of close contact, a number have responded with thanks, citing the care we are taking to inform families as soon as possible. In addition, a number have been surprised and even frustrated that we can only recommend mitigating responses, not require them. The one mentioned most often is that a close contact can attend school without masking and without a negative test result. I would like to end with an analogy. You don't wear a seatbelt because you know you will get in an accident, but rather as a tool to minimize or eliminate injury. Even with airbags, we continue to wear seatbelts. We have come to understand it as a layer of protection. Shouldn't we also require the layer of protection that is available to all students and staff in all our schools? Thank you.
Jess?
I thought it would be helpful to share a day in a life at Center Woods within the last 2 weeks and to explain the leveled operations as it pertains to the school and DHHS guidelines that we voted on and that we're following. As with other schools in the state, we inform parents not to send students to school with any symptoms of COVID. Should a student come to school with a symptom or develop a symptom, we send them home and recommend COVID testing. Students can return if they have a negative test and their symptoms have improved, or they self-isolate for 10 days from the onset of symptoms. One of the changes to the DHHS guidelines, as Dr. Coe and Sean Hilliard pointed out, is that students and staff who have come in contact with a positive person, but not a household contact, will need to self-monitor for symptoms, and it is recommended they wear a mask for 14 days from exposure and test 5 to 7 days from exposure. I think I know this by heart already. Obviously, we're following the board's decision to not mandate mask wearing. So this is something we're not enforcing, but we're recommending parents mask their child as the DHHS guidance suggests. Since the beginning of school, we've had 10 positive cases in the building. As of a few minutes ago, it's 11. These positive cases have impacted 8 classes and 2 buses. We have asked a total of 177 people to self-monitor because they have been exposed. I should say people associated with Center Woods. DHHS is working with us and investigating the cases to determine if our spread meets the definition of an outbreak, because we have 2 clusters, which is 3 or more linked positive exposures, that are unrelated. Although I do not work for DHHS, I'm intimately involved with the contact tracing, and I feel that we do meet the definition of an outbreak. As you have read in Dr. Coe's messaging to the community this past week, many of our students are not wearing masks. As of Monday, all of our staff are wearing masks based on the recommendations, although they are not mandated to. Roughly 25% of our students are wearing masks, and based on teacher feedback and my observations, it appears that roughly 75% of the exposed students are not wearing masks. Another COVID-related issue that I want to bring to the board's attention is the amount of students who come to school with symptoms. I have sent 35 students home from the health office, myself and the nurse, because they have come with symptoms or developed symptoms in the morning. Teachers are immediately sending the students to the health office if they see these signs, but it may be after students could be exposed. Another problem this presents is that we're trying to isolate various students who are sent down to the office, but we don't have enough space and enough staff to isolate them. On Monday, we sent home 10 students with symptoms. We currently have 56 students out with symptoms. Although I don't have an interest in participating in a mask debate, I can share that this situation has become unmanageable. It is much more challenging than last year. Certainly, there is great learning and community building happening at Center Woods throughout the entire day. Teachers should be commended for their ability to create a normal classroom atmosphere. However, underneath that happy front, teachers are struggling to teach their classes while a percentage of their class is home. Classrooms are constantly moving from their classes to have a deep clean because a student has had symptoms in the health and is now in the health office. When students are sick and in the health office, admin and office are spending their workday, weekends, and nights reaching out to parents to inform them of exposure. Also, any available people are covering classes, which means we're not able to offer some of our non-special ed services, such as enrichment, para support, things like that on any given day. We have taken additional measures, as Dr. Coe suggested, to increase distancing between cohorts, increase hand washing, reduce transmission between classes, etc. However, we continue to see the numbers increase rather than decrease. My recommendation moving forward is to follow and enforce all the DHHS guidelines. I fear that we made a decision to follow some of the guidelines versus all of them, which caused this unmanageable decision. It's, to go off your analogy, it's like DHHS gave us a set of directions, but we didn't take our first left, so we can never get to our destination. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. Okay, we are now at the point of the meeting where we have public comment. Policy BEDH states the primary purpose of the school board meeting is to conduct the business of the board as it relates to school policies, programs, and operations. The board encourages residents to attend board meetings so that they can become acquainted with the operation and programs of the school. All official meetings of the board shall be open to the press and public. However, the board reserves the right to meet and adjourn or recess the meeting at any time. The board also reserves the right to enter non-public session at any time in accordance with provisions RSA 91A:3. To ensure that persons who wish to appear before the board may be heard and at the same time it may conduct its business meetings properly and efficiently, the board adopts this as a policy the following procedures and rules pertaining to public comment. Public comment will appear twice on the agenda, once at the beginning and once after new business. All those wishing to speak need to sign a form. The chair will recognize each attendee who wishes to speak. Any individual desiring to speak shall give their name, their address, their group, if any, which is presented.
I'd like to make a motion so that all the parents who want to speak can speak instead of having a time limit so that they can all be heard before we vote.
Okay, can I finish this?
Yep, I thought you were
Then-
done. 'cause
No,
you
oh, no,
paused.
no. That's only 3, but, so number 4, public comment will be closed after 10 minutes or whenever there are no further comments, whichever comes first. Presentations should be as brief as possible. Individual presentations should last no longer than 3 to 5 minutes. Written remarks should be encouraged. Members of the public are welcome to comment on agenda items. Items that do not appear on the agenda may be raised by the public. However, the board will not comment on these items as the public has not been properly noticed. When appropriate, the board may place such items on a future agenda. Consistent with RSA 91-A:3, policy BEDB, the laws pertaining to students and family privacy rights, the board will not place any matter on a public agenda to be properly discussed in a non-public session. Complaints regarding individual employees, personnel, and students will be directed to the superintendent in accordance with policies KE and KEB. All speakers are to conduct themselves in a civil manner, please. The board will not hear personal complaints regarding school personnel nor against any person connected with the school system. The board authorizes its chairperson to terminate remarks of any individual that do not adhere to the rules established above as to content or time limitation. The school board will not permit members of the public at meetings to participate in the board's discussion of agenda items. The board authorizes its chairperson to recognize members of the public when the chairperson deems it necessary. Persons appearing before the board are reminded that members of the board are without authority to act independently as individuals on official matters. Thus, questions may be directed to individual board members, but answers must be deferred pending consideration by the full board. A copy of this policy will appear on the back of each meeting's agenda. So we have a motion from Rochelle to let everyone speak. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Yes. So we have discussion now. Rochelle, you can speak to it first since it was your motion.
Last time, everyone didn't get to speak and left half of the community on both sides really irritated that we voted before their voice got to be heard. So I think we should extend it so that we can hear everyone's opinions first.
Okay, so no time limit, just everybody speak.
Right.
Okay.
While I would like that to happen, I wish we had some assurance that people that were speaking were bringing new thoughts to the table. I think this is the third time we've had this discussion, and the second time we had the discussion, we heard a lot of the same information. And I don't want you to feel like we aren't hearing your voices. I listened to everything everyone had to say. I have a family and a full-time job, And if you're going to come up here and say the same thing that you said the last 2 times, I would like for you to just give someone else an opportunity.
I did still mean a time limit per person, just not a time limit total.
Okay. Okay, do you want to amend it with the time limit that you're thinking?
So still have the same time limit per person, just not the whole time limit.
So 3 to 5 minutes per person, just to
Right.
clarify? Okay.
Yes.
Did you want to say it?
I'd like to hear everybody's opinion, but I think we do need to have a limit. I'd say 3, I'd like to amend it to say 3 minutes per person.
So I'm looking at 23 people who want to speak, and so just doing the math, that's over an hour. So if we want to go with 3, I'm okay with that, but just know that that's the duration. Okay, any other discussion?
I'm good with 3 minutes.
Okay, so just before we vote, I have to go back to roll call votes because there was a lot of misunderstanding on how people voted last time. So, I'm going to start with Daniel, is it, yay, nay, or abstain?
Yay.
Christine?
Yay to 3 minutes.
Wendy, yes. Sarah?
Abstain.
Abstain. Michelle?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so 30 minutes, an hour and a half, okay. So, first person on the line is Ken Stevenson. Oh, and we have a timekeeper? Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
How you doing? Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ken Stevenson, and I just want to take a moment to recognize that September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and to tell the students, past and present of Weare around the world, you're in our thoughts and prayers, and never give up. But like the children who fight cancer every day or who suffer from the side effects, those who suffer from the side effects of 9/11, COVID was nothing that we saw coming, right? As a community, our goal is to keep it simple, keep the kids safe, and provide an education. While we don't have a remote option other than unenrolling our children and doing VLACs, the choice was made for in-person learning to start with optional masking. The importance of being a community is not, being everyone together, but not everyone will agree. Some of us may agree to disagree, just like those who thought September 11th was a hoax, but many were there, unfortunately, know how real it was. Wearing a mask may not be 100%. Again, look at what happened to some of us that left September 11th. However, a mask can provide some safety measures, and when bundled with social distancing and other options, it gives us an opportunity of space to provide less exposure. Some in the community are awaiting a vaccine for their child, and some will not give their child the vaccine. But that is the choice of the parent and the child. But wearing as a mask is something that most of us can do, and if a child has a reason why they can't, the school district has outlined before how they can help. One of the things we are missing is the opportunity for student voice. And I ask the board and the school district to expand that. I'm tired of reading the negativity or the attacks based on a person's view. Remember this, our children are going to be reading what's being said. They'll watch what's being said. And we need to find a way to work together and accept and find other alternatives if masks are not required during the surge of cases we are seeing. Or we need to combine no masks with social distancing and other ideas that need to be discussed in a rational way. I'll leave you with this. A childhood cancer of this district once told me, it's not hard to wear a mask and socially distance. I did that during my treatment many times for over 2 years, and not many people had a problem putting on a mask for me. I'm pretty sure if people wore a mask around me while I was fighting cancer, kids should be able to wear a mask at school to try to stop getting COVID to other kids and me. That child, I'm proud to say, is my son. And my daughter, her words are much stronger, let's just say. I need each of us to reflect on our why. The why we are here tonight, the why we are trying to protect our family and friends from COVID-19, and why we need to work together to do our part to mask up once again to reduce the risk for those who are awaiting vaccine or those who wish to not have the vaccine, but to reduce the exposure for all. In conclusion, I know this one thing. I know that not all the adults of the students will be happy when we leave here tonight, but this is about what's best for the kids, and that's something we need to teach the kids. We are trying to do together as a community, as they are the future, and we need to protect our future at all costs. Thank you.
Owen. It's your turn, hon.
Hello, my name is Owen Gitchell, and I live on 77 Fox Hollow Drive. I'm a sixth grade student at Weare Middle School, and I wrote a letter to the school board and administration in August because I had concerns about returning to school without masks. Now I have bigger concerns because of the number of cases of COVID-19 in our district, our town, and in our state. I'll be 12 years old on December 24th, and I have asked my mom to take me to get vaccinated on my birthday. I'm asking the board to require masks to be worn in school, at least until children have been vaccinated. I want to be able to feel safe going to school and play soccer for my school team. When I was younger, I took peanut butter sandwiches and snacks to school every day. Then one year, a kid in my class had a peanut allergy, and the whole class stopped bringing peanuts to school and keep that one kid safe. I have a good friend in my class who is a cancer survivor. What I don't understand is why everyone can't do something as simple as wearing a mask to protect him and to protect other kids, especially those who are at high risk. Giving up peanuts was easy, and so is wearing a mask. People at the last school board meeting said masks are bad for kids' social health because kids need to see their teachers' and friends' faces when they are talking. We ordered this clear mask yesterday from Amazon. It costed $3 and was delivered today. Seems like a pretty simple fix. Maybe instead of fighting about who's right and who's wrong, we could work together to find solutions like this to keep everyone safe.
Thank you, Ellen. Okay, Alexandra.
Hi, my name is Alexandra Manella. I live at 48 Apple Way. I just have a general comment. I just want to let you all know you're never going to get transmission under control, right? Just like the common cold and the flu, you can mask, you can test, you can contact trace, quarantine. You'll never get this under control. I hear that the students' learning is at risk and the system seems unmanageable. It is because, not because of a virus, and not because people aren't masking enough. It's because the adults are being hysterical over this. All right. If you guys want to get back to normal and learning, then you need to stop testing and stop being hysterical over a virus that has very low risk to the general population. Now onto masks. So my background, I'm a former environmental health and safety specialist for a Fortune 500 company in New York City. And in my industry, we don't just wear a mask. We don't just pick up any old mask, piece of cloth, and put it over our face and say, okay, this is good enough, I'm protected. No, there are long-established OSHA guidelines that dictate what kind of masks we wear and how we protect ourselves against airborne illness and airborne particles, right? So the first thing is we have to select a mask that's appropriate for the task at hand, right? So if you think a paper or a cloth mask is appropriate for protecting you from a virus or illness or death, you know, that's your opinion. There's expert opinions on both sides of this, and that's up to you. In my industry, we would choose a mask that's appropriate for the task at hand. The other thing we would do is have a medical evaluation for the person wearing the mask, because not everyone is fit to wear a mask. We all have different health conditions. I may not be able to wear a mask, right, because of who knows, right? It doesn't matter. And then the other thing we would do after medically evaluating the person is to fit the mask to the person's face to make sure it had a proper seal on it, right? You would do a negative pressure test and then a positive pressure test on the mask to make sure nothing could get through it. I don't think we're doing that with these cloth masks, and this is supposedly like the deadliest virus known to mankind, and we're not doing that testing. We're just putting a cloth mask over these kids' faces and saying, oh, that's good enough. I don't think that's the right thing to do personally. It doesn't make much sense to me. One thing I want to point out here, it's really divided, right? And you're not going to solve this by making one side cave to the other. The best way to go about this is the way we always have, right? In flu season and cold season, We protect ourselves based on our individual health needs. Right? These are individual choices that the parents should be making for their children.
Time, sorry.
Bottom line. So you need to end these mandates
thank you.
and let people make
Brent,
their
it's your
individual
turn.
choices. Thank you.
Brent? Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Hi, Sarah. You look stressed. Yeah, why are we here? We're talking about the same thing again. All of us, particularly you folks, are experiencing complications of COVID. Not in a good way. The masks haven't changed. Inferior testing hasn't changed. Of the students that test positive, was a follow-up test given to rule out a false positive? CDC's doing away with the test for a reason. Fauci runs the CDC, basically, NIH. Masks don't matter. There's no data that says it does. We present facts. You call it anecdotal.
Please talk to the board, please. Thank you.
Thank you. It's called anecdotal. After anecdotal is titled up, it's called facts. It's what we run off of in life, not feelings. Nothing has changed since the last meeting. Every year, we go through the kids getting sent home. That's a parenting issue. Each parent should have their choice to mask or not. If they can't control their child to wear that mask while they're at school, that's a parenting problem, not a community problem. Now, the second thing I would like to address is why the chairperson of this board is putting things on social media to undermine other board members. I have a screenshot. I'm calling for your resignation now, or I'll run against you in March.
Okay.
I don't think you're running this correctly. I think this is getting overblown, and I will be seeking FOIA requests from the superintendent's office to your official capacity, the superintendent's office to the state and the Teachers Association. Guaranteed. Thank you.
Thank you. Holly?
Quite a bit shorter. Hi, everybody. Holly Shelley, 147 High Rock Road. I typed some stuff out. I'm not really going to read it in the interest of time. I do understand where Sarah's coming from. We're here. We're talking about the same thing again. There are certain things with masking, you know, we're pointing to that as the reason that all this stuff is happening, but there's a lot of other factors at play. We are letting kids eat in the lunchrooms. We're letting them play with each other at recess. We took away distancing, and magically we're all surprised that kids are getting sick. Like, it's just this type of hysteria, like was said before, that everybody's getting all frenzied and upset, but are kids getting sick more than just a cold with a cough? Because that seems to be all the kids that I've seen that have tested positive, they've got coughs, they're sick. It takes them about a week to have no more symptoms, then they're back in school like nothing happened. Now, it is an impossible task with all the guidelines that have been set, because if you're telling people to get tested and they have to wait 10 days to come back into school with a negative test before they can come back into school, it's just creating this giant pile of backlog of stuff that you guys have to deal with. And I don't know how you guys are going to do it, especially since the biggest issue this district has right now is staffing. I don't understand how this hasn't been the fire that everybody's been talking about. We don't have enough teachers. We don't have enough school bus drivers. We don't have enough janitors. We don't have enough support staff. We have support staff that I have seen on social media saying that they're staying home due to exposure. Well, don't the guidelines say that exposure, you're supposed to stay in school unless you show symptoms or you test positive? How many staff members do you have that are out right now because they've been exposed but they have no symptoms? How many parents have pulled their students out of school because they were exposed but they have no symptoms? So where are we going to put this problem away? I just don't see how masks have anything to do with it. You're saying it's an extra level of protection, but We haven't talked about what the clusters look like. Were they mostly staff? Were they mostly students? Were any of them wearing masks when they caught COVID? I just don't get it. And I think the one thing to keep in mind is that there are kids that are affected by all these mitigation factors that are put into place. These kids have had 3 weeks of a mostly normal school year. I know the staff has not, but the kids have. They have been going to school, they've gotten to see their friends, they've gotten to eat in their lunchrooms, they've gotten to do all the things that they have to do and that they've been able to do before. But now you're gonna start telling them that they can again. You're gonna switch things up 3 weeks into school because you're dealing with something that it's literally impossible to deal with. So what do? I say we let the kids be kids and we leave them alone. You guys are adults. You guys figure it out. You deal with it. Leave the kids alone. Let them have their school year. Don't
Time.
take a third year of disrupting this whole thing.
Sorry,
and
thank
having-
you. Janice?
Good evening. I'm Janice Matthews, 29 Woodbury Lane in Weare. I too believe that the hysteria that we're going through is self-inflicted, that the kids that we're talking about are the least at risk in the society all across America. Weare is no different. The children are at least risk, they have the least amount of symptoms, they recover the quickest, and we're imposing on them our ideals and our mandates, which is not conducive to their health and well-being. So I encourage you to continue to allow the parents to make the best decisions for their children and the risks that are associated with that family. Thank you.
Thank you. Connie? Connie, did you want to talk? Connie Evans? No. Oh, Connie Evans? Nope. I was going to speak, but it has already been. Okay, thank you. Gary, no. Bill Pollitt?
Good evening. Thank you. My name is William Pollitt. I live at 571 Concord Stage Road. I have a couple of comments about masks. First, just low risk to the general public for coronavirus. Perhaps a little later in the meeting, we could have a moment of silence for the population of Vermont, because that number of people have been killed by coronavirus. I'm glad it is such low risk. As far as kids doing this, doing that, what's the best for them? I've been working in a mask mandatory school this month, and kids are the smartest, most resilient creatures on planet Earth. They wear their masks, they don't fight, they don't argue. Any problems with masking is not a problem with the kids, it's a problem with their parents projecting their neurosis on their kids. My main point is school board members take an oath when they assume their office, and that oath implies, if doesn't state directly, that they will not work to the detriment of the body on which they serve. On September 13th, a school board member posted the following, and I quote, on a public social media forum, "Boycott public schools." I don't care what excuse is made for it. I don't care if she says it was a joke, because I'm sure it wasn't a joke when it was a few lines down from Love Jesus. I say that any school board member who ex cathedra states boycott public schools should resign from the board immediately, right now, Rochelle, right now, because you are working to the detriment of the body on which you have taken an oath to serve.
Thanks for your opinion, but that comment was on a post about the schools.
Point of order.
Yep,
Not
yeah, out of order.
Not
We need a
vaccinating
point of
children
order.
Out of order.
against their parents' wills.
Out of order.
So, point of
Need a
order.
point of order.
No personal attacks.
Out of
so-
order.
Boycott public schools. Interpret it how you will. The words say what they say, and there's no escaping it. You are working to the detriment of this body. You have brought disgrace to the school board and to the Weare Public Schools. Go ahead, say what you have to
Point of order.
say.
I think.
Yep. Okay, so My point of order was we're not going to have a debate. Now that he has spoken, you're welcome to respond to it.
The post he's referring to was a post about a school vaccinating children against their parents' will.
Who's the secretary?
What?
Go ahead, bring it over to me too. I'd like to see it.
Okay.
Copy it, send it everywhere.
Okay. Let's see.
I 100% believe you should boycott schools when they're not fitting the needs of your children, which is exactly why I took my children out of Weare schools.
And you have the nerve to serve on this board.
Okay, I think we're done. Marcia Madziaritz?
That's Majors.
Right.
I know it doesn't look that way. My husband's a Polack. My name, are we done?
Yes.
I was just wondering if anybody else wanted to see it first.
I hope my 3 minutes has not started yet.
No, I think, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Marcia Majors. I live at 323 Poor Farm Road here in Weare, and I'm also the school nurse here at Weare Middle School, Centerwoods Upper Elementary School. I hope that you have not all made up your minds and that you can listen with an open mind and heart to some of the statistics that
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm having trouble focusing and listening. If we could please limit conversation while the person's speaking,
Yes,
that would
please.
be great.
Thank you.
I'm going to share some statistics that are true for this school. These are not CDC statistics. These are not state of New Hampshire statistics. These are statistics for Weare Middle School and Centerwoods Upper Elementary School. We had several layers of protection in place last year. Many of them are not in place this year. In 2021, we did pickup patrol, morning screening. Every parent had to screen their student before coming to school. We are not doing that this year. I have students coming to school in my office right off the bus, sick. I sent home 3 students yesterday before an hour and a half had gone by in my day. They were sick before they came to school. And they are walking through our doors with, I don't know that they are positive, but they are walking through our doors with germs and no mask. Your students are sitting next to them. We also had a staggered arrival and dismissal last year. This year we are not doing that. Everybody comes and leaves at the same time. That increases exposure. We had social distancing last year of 3 to 6 feet. We hopefully are maintaining 3 feet this year, but in many situations that is not possible to do. We had plexiglass barriers in many places last year. Most of those are gone this year. We did a hybrid schedule where half of the students in middle school were here on Tuesday, Thursday, the other half were here on Wednesday, Friday. All of our students are in the building this year. We required masks last year. This year, masks are optional. We are cleaning both last year and this year, and hopefully we are still washing our hands this year. Last year, by the end of the year, I had 600 entries on my illness tracker for the entire school year. Today, I have 95 entries in 15 days of school. I might even have more. I haven't checked my email for an hour and a half. Last year, our first positive case was on October 26th. This year, I have 8 positive cases in this school as of today. Maybe more. I haven't checked my email. Last year, in this school, there was no in-school transmission for the whole year. This year, we have clusters at Centerwoods and John Stark. The easiest level of protection
I'm sorry.
to add back is adding masks.
Thank you.
This isn't forever.
Jeff Carpenter?
Good evening, Jeff Carpentier, Roosevelt Road here in Weare. I just want to make a little bit of a point here and avoid the masks work versus masks don't work and where we should all be. Last I checked, nobody sitting on the board right here in front of me has a medical degree. They don't specialize in infectious disease, and we're not in Health and Human Services to protect our community, correct? That being said, when I go to work, I'm an air traffic controller. I don't want somebody that doesn't have an experience as an air traffic controller telling me how to do my job and how to run my traffic. And I would assume that the flying public wouldn't want that either. Not to mention the fact that when I say I'm an air traffic controller, about half the people think I'm the guy on the ramp with the wands. That's not the case. We have guidelines by experts in the medical field, just like Jacqueline was talking about, that we should be following. Give them the tools to keep our kids in school so we don't have to cancel, have them outside of the class, and continue their learning experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Patrick McCullum?
This is kind of long, and I won't bore you guys because it's kind of the same sort of stuff. I think a lot of what I said, or what I was going to say, has already kind of been said, and you guys all pretty much know what I'm going to say anyway. I think it's extremely important to realize that these people are in the trenches doing what you guys, no offense, aren't. You're hearing from school nurses, and if anybody here is on the fence, you have to divert your attention to the experts and the people that are in the trenches. And I would encourage all of you to ask these folks what it's like. That's it. Thanks.
Let's see. Jess Fuller. Jess Fuller.
Hi, I'm Jessica Fuller, Mountain School Road. I actually wrote this up for the last school board meeting, but I'm actually going to read it for you here today. I just have a few questions. They're rhetorical. I already know the answers to them. First one is, what licensing or certificates does anyone have here that allows you to make medical decisions for my children? What licensing or certificates does anyone have here that allows you to prescribe medical devices for my children? Do you have signed consent forms to access my children's medical files? Do you have signed consent forms to treat my children for their medical needs? I know the answers to all these are no. You do not. There's one person in this room that can treat my children for anything, and that is Marcia, but not for masks. It is a medical device. This is not your decision. It is mine. It's the parents here in this room. They want their children to wear masks. They can. My children don't need to wear masks. I have fought way too hard for my children to get an adequate education, just a basic education in this school district for years. And now I'm going to continue to have to fight for them even more so. My son is deaf. It states clearly in his IEP, black and white, that anybody, including himself, anyone communicating in him, is not to have their mouth or chin covered at any point. That has not happened the last 2 years. That is breaking federal law. That is breaking a contract that is signed. That's not okay. Our community cannot afford that lawsuit. But I have to come up with extra paperwork. Extra excuses are given to me on what I have to do for my child to have a choice. If we're put in a situation where it's to protect somebody that is currently sick, going through chemo, those type of things, that's one thing, but it's not all day. It's not my son coming home and complaining of a headache or complaining that he has no idea what happened the last 4 months in school because he couldn't hear his teacher. Not knowing what time of day it is unless he has a clock sitting in front of him. He can't hear his peers because he reads lips. We've now had to disrupt his day even more by adding even more services because he can't hear his teacher. He can't hear his peers. He cannot be involved. He is not getting an adequate education. The only option here is optional masks. Other than that, it's not your right. Think of our kids. My kids. That's all I'm here for. It's my kids. I'm going to continue to fight for my kids because you will not mask my kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. Okay, Nicole Goulet.
Thank you. Hi there. I'm new to the school district. I live on Bernard Hill Road in Weare. My son Thomas just started kindergarten, and I just wanted to talk about quickly how I would like to support the mask mandate, at least until we get a vaccine that our children are going to be able to get, so that they can, be healthy with the safety net, again, with the masks. So I want my children to be safe and healthy as well as other children. It is a proven fact that over the last few hundred years, vaccines have extended human life. We should be considerate to those who can't get vaccines. The children whose immune systems are compromised, our children who are too young to get vaccinated. Until that time happens, we need to be smart and listen to the experts and look back in time. And I mean, even last year, when these things were in place, the masks and the social distancing and, the staggered leaving and coming of school. We are now 3 weeks into the school year and already facing outbreaks, quarantines, and COVID-19 testing for our children. My son currently is out with symptoms, being tested, and can't go to school and can't get his education because he was exposed. Now, if he was vaccinated and didn't have symptoms, then this wouldn't be an issue. So I feel a lot of this can be mitigated using safety practices that were in place last year, to include wearing masks. We have to show our children how to do that and not give them a choice. We have to lead by example. I've realized that over the years of having children, that giving them choices always makes things more difficult. Life is not easy. We cannot continue to turn the other way on this. Regardless of your political stance, I believe in public health and safety. I believe in the freedom to make your own choices. I do not believe in letting our children make those choices for us. We are the adults, and we choose for them. I choose safety and health until a vaccine for all is available. Working at an urgent care really puts this pandemic right into perspective for me. When we are seeing 75 to 95 patients a day, 30 of them need COVID testing, and 5 are positives from Weare, I urge you to reconsider and make masks mandatory during the peak outbreaks, or until at least we get a vaccine that is safe for all children. That is all. Thanks for my time.
Missy. Melissa Dakota.
My name's Melissa Dakota, and I live on North Stark Highway in Weare. I'm a teacher at Center Woods, and I do not like speaking up here in front of adults. I much prefer kids. So I wrote a letter to the school board saying that I know that a lot of people think that allowing parents to choose whether their students wear masks doesn't impact teachers because we do have the option to vaccinate. But it's simply not true. The conditions we're working in now have a great impact on teachers, personally and professionally, and also on students. We've had more cases and exposures since the start of the school year at Center Woods than we did the entire last year, and students are getting COVID. I had to get my first COVID test ever because I was exposed at school this year. The process took 3 hours out of my personal time in the evening because the system is overloaded and understaffed because of the increase in the community. Another teacher I know has spent over 4 hours getting tested during her personal time because she's had 2 exposures. Yesterday, an experienced teacher that I'm close with said this was the first time she felt afraid to go to work. Because of the constant exposure at school, I have a friend who said she won't be able to hug her daughter before she goes away next week to graduate school. She's going to be studying abroad, and she doesn't want to jeopardize her incredible travel plans. For me, that was the most impactful thing I heard, is about how it's affecting our personal lives. I hope you never have to make a choice that prevents you from hugging your children. We're also impacted professionally because at school we're operating in crisis mode. We're short-staffed, sometimes leaving students without para support, leaving teachers to do necessary cleaning and covering extra duties just to keep the school operating. Everyone's doing their best and pitching in, and people are working 16-hour days, such as in the health office, the custodians, and the administration. They're really amazing, and they're doing much more than is humanly possible. We're working together as a team of creative problem solvers and respectful collaborators, and it shows what a truly magical thing we have at Center Woods. However, we're feeling the stress, and this is unsustainable. We can't keep up this pace in crisis mode for too long. The COVID exposures and positive cases are a big part of the reason for our staff shortages right now. The difference between this year and last year is masks. I know the last time the decision was made, we talked about summer school, and it was said that we didn't wear masks in summer school. I taught summer school with another teacher, and we did wear masks. We were comfortably air conditioned, but we wore masks when we were not at our desk or when we were not outside. I care about and respect all people, and I know that being a parent is the hardest job in the world, and everyone wants the best for their children. I appreciate the opportunity to teach the amazing children in my classes and the opportunities to work with their kind and supportive parents. I ask you to consider a mask-wearing policy, at least when we're in this crisis mode, because it worked for us last year. Many of the teachers within the school are vaccinated, and we wear masks for our students, but it doesn't change how we're affected in school. I respect
Sorry,
parent
I see
choice.
time. Sorry.
I really do.
Thank you. So let's see, Christine, is it Nass or Nash? Nace, sorry.
Christine Nace, 195 Concord Stage Road. And I would just ask you to listen to the recommendations of your superintendent and the teachers and the staff. So please go back to all the levels of protection so they can try to teach and do the best job for your kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Okay, someone has as messy a handwriting as me. Is that Josh Hilliard?
Hi, Josh Hilliard, Woodbury Road. Just want to say I'm disappointed in the board given the decision last month. I think despite the heroic efforts of our team here, that of course we're having a much worse year than we did last year. It's as if you tied one arm behind their back and pushed them into the ring and said, go at it. They don't have the tools they need to keep the children safe and the schools running. I think everyone here is here because they're invested in our kids and the schools. We want children in the school, and they can't be, given how many absences we have because of what's going on. I'd urge you to reconsider, of course, the decision you made last month and give the educators here the tools they need to continue the schools, to have, it's not my time, is it? To keep the schools open, to keep our children safe and keep them here. It's undeniable that it's better for the kids to be in the schools as they get the education. To do that, they should have all the tools that they had last year to keep schools open.
Thank you. Rachel Martin?
Hi, I'm Rachel Martin. I live on River Road. Some parents want masks, others don't, meaning the only logical thing to do is to keep them optional. The fact that we keep running to masks as our answer, despite the fact that every piece of science we have to this day shows they don't work, is irrational and literally the definition of insane. They didn't work for the Spanish flu of 1918, and they aren't working now for COVID-19 because masks, the ones we wear, the way we wear them, the way we take them off, and where we store them do nothing to protect us. If you want protection from this virus or any other of the hundreds of others of thousands of viruses and bacteria that exist in our day-to-day life, then build up your immune system. But stop being so fearful and just live your life. COVID-19, just like coronavirus NL63 or coronavirus 229E, isn't going away just because you cover your face with a disgusting rag all day. And it won't go away even if you force every kid in every school to wear a mask, because masking doesn't work for viral particles. Saying it does isn't even ignorant at this point, it's just foolish. And it's also incredibly dangerous because if someone truly is at risk for COVID complications, which children are not, then they need to take measures that will actually protect them, like strengthening their immune system, staying away from large groups of people, having someone else do their grocery shopping, and other protective measures. Wearing a mask does nothing other than make someone think they are safe when they are not. While I don't think any child should be masked, if a parent is truly terrified and wants their child to be masked, then they can mask them. It's their choice. We're not taking that choice away from them. But thinking that mandating masks will make our schools safer goes against everything that the science is saying. The only thing masks do is create a false sense of security. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad? Brad Coriel?
Brad Coriel from Center Road. Not going to be quite as eloquent as some people. Thank you to everybody that is on the school board and works within the school. I'm going to bring a different perspective, I think, to this. Got a 6th grader here in the building, and last year he hated coming to school. All I heard about him was complaining about his mask. He's falling asleep at dinner at night. This year, we fight about homework. We're not fighting about masks. We're not fighting about this. Every parent should have their own opinion on how they want to proceed. My wife and myself, we have decided that this is not going to be the thing that is going to scare us. We have enough other things in our lives that are going to scare us. Does that mean that people that are concerned about COVID or Corona are wrong? No. You can find any expert you want to give you the facts that you want. The difference is we now have contradictory facts are now known as misinformation or misleading facts. Every parent here, with masks, without masks, school members, school board members have to make the best decision for themselves and their family. Myself and my wife, we've made the decision that for our son, we don't believe a mask is necessary for him. We just want him to get a good education. And if that means without a mask, he's happy to go to school, or somewhat happy to go to school because he is a 6th grader and he doesn't want to go to school most days. That's the way it's got to be, and I hope you folks will let us have our decision as to what is best for our son. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Doherty?
Hi, thanks. Tom Flaherty, Sunrise Lane. I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be one, but I am a parent of 3 boys. Fortunately, they're all out of college now, so they're not going through all this. But if you think making them wear a mask every day, all day at school is going to make a difference, I beg to differ. 90% of the time, when they were 10 years old, they had their finger in their ear, nose, or mouth about 80% of the time during the day. The mask would be up and down. They'd be making fun of it. It is not taken seriously by kids, at least boys that are like my kids when they were that age. Coming from the perspective of kids' mental health and parental choice, which I believe in firmly, I'll talk about outcomes. I know in education, outcomes are a big deal, right? The recovery rate in New Hampshire of people age 20 and under is 100%. Age 30 and under, it's 99.9%. That's one person has succumbed to COVID in this year and a half under the age of 30. This is New Hampshire COVID statistics. Under the age of 40, the recovery rate is 99.5%. That's 7 people. I think we're going a little bit overboard here. I also saw that week over week, the number of cases in New Hampshire has dropped 9%. That came out today. I understand that people are fearful of this. Some people are not. That's where the choice should come in. I just think that with all the things that we did last year and not even being in school, the cases were twice what they are right now. So I think it's a little premature right now to jump to a full mask mandate after only 3 or 4 weeks in school, and we just voted on this a month ago. Thank you.
Thank you. is it Kara Barrier? Okay, can you come up to the mic, please?
So my name's Kira Barrier, and I live on Mountain Road. And it sounds like everybody's kind of touched base on their feelings, their thoughts. One thing I would like to say is if we do mandate masks, we are already short-staffed enough as it is. So we are going to ask our teachers and staff to do one more thing and to mandate these masks as these kids are walking through the hallway that they don't want to be wearing to begin with. So, yeah, that's really just my only thought that I didn't hear yet.
Thank you. Katrina Wagner.
My name's Katrina Wagner, and I live on a Bridge Road. A lot of the things that I was going to mention kind of were mentioned already, but I'm here to speak about the school's policy and outlook on mandates, masks, and the future expectations that us as parents and taxpayers should have for the school plan moving forward. Like was stated previously, COVID cannot be eradicated. It's not like polio or smallpox. Vaccines are great, but COVID has and can spread to animals just like it does the flu. We've been dealing with SARS viruses that have mutated over years this entire time. We're reactively masking when it's when is this going to stop? It's unacceptable to expect to think that our children would be forced to be masked for 7 to 9 hours a day, 180 days for 12 years, because we're reactively masking. When is it really going to end? The dangers of COVID are something to consider, but also the mental health load that we're going to be putting on our kids is ridiculous. They should not be expected to protect anybody else. We're supposed to be protecting them. Masking should be the choice of the parents, period. The school has no right to force students to wear a medical device without consent from their parent or guardian. FDA.org states that, and I quote, "The FDA regulates face masks indicating cloth face coverings, barrier face coverings, and surgical masks as a medical device when they are intended for a medical purpose." FDA.org also states that a medical purpose includes use is and related to helping and preventing COVID-19. Why are we, after almost getting to 2 years now, not discussing other options? There's no difference than any other hurdle or learning disability that we work with and provide IEPs for. There's no reason that we cannot come with other solutions to protect the people that need to be protected. The school has a right to enforce a dress code. You do not have a right to force children without consent to use a medical device. We need to be having a different conversation. We need to be concerned about the developmental effects, the mental health effects that this has on our kids, especially the younger kids in elementary and middle school. Stop masking and making reactive, emotional decisions, and let the parents decide, because it is not your right to do so.
Thank you. Sabrina Morgan.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Morgan, South Sugar Hill Road. My son is brand new to the district, 6th grade. He is on the spectrum, so he has a lot of issues with social cues and reading body language and everything else. And putting masks on, he's not learning from the children beside him the social cues and the interactions that he's supposed to have as an 11-year-old. He's already behind because of his autism. But then you add the masks to it, he's not learning what he needs to. You know, a lot of kids hate wearing masks. And it's understandable whether their parents want them to or not, or whether teachers want them to. It doesn't matter who wants them to. If they don't want to wear one, they're going to do whatever they can not to. I believe it should be the choice of the parent. The school shouldn't be mandating it, and I will be the first one to say I will look into alternative education options if the school mandates masks for my son. He needs to be able to see. He needs to be able to learn. He needs to be able to enjoy school. We have a lot of dropouts. I mean, I was a high school dropout because I did not enjoy school. You're going to send these kids to school, and they're not going to enjoy being able to play with their friends or, you know, what's next? You're going to take away contact sports? They don't wear masks. Gym class, can't wear masks running around, right? Or are you going to force them to so they pass out and drop because they can't breathe? I'm just saying it should be the choice of the parents. If you want your kids to wear a mask, you teach them to wear a mask and they wear it. If you don't want them to wear a mask or they don't want to, then they shouldn't be forced to do something they don't want to do. My son doesn't want to go see his grandmother. I'm not going to force him to go see his grandmother. I mean, you can't force things on children because they have their own beliefs the older they get. And a lot of this is panic from older adults. I have yet to see a lot on the news of younger children dying from this. They may get sick, but I have yet to see on the news a lot of younger children dying. I mean, I survived H1N1, severe H1N1, and that was a pandemic back then. I mean, I've had COVID now. I'm also vaccinated. But I survived, and a lot of other people have too. Thank you.
Stephen, Ryan?
Hello. So it's like deja vu, huh? It's a little bit like we're stuck in a time loop. All right, now, are we going to be able to commit to this decision, or are we going to be doing the song and dance again next month? I'm just wondering so we can clear the calendar and have it ready. Now, I'm also wondering, is kids getting sick, like, new to this year? Like, have they never gotten sick historically before? Isn't that how they build their immune system? I'm also wondering, when does the crisis mode end? Like, at what point do we say, okay, this is enough, and we're done, and we're not going to do this foolishness anymore? I'll just leave that as rhetorical. Now, to address the seatbelt is known as an emergency life-saving device that is rigorously tested and has proven results before they come to the market. A mask is not the same thing. It even says on the box, it will not protect you from COVID. If it would have really worked, then COVID wouldn't have really spread that much in the first place, especially in New York and California, where they locked down and masked up the hardest out of anywhere else in the country. Now, there was a Danish study that showed there was about a 0.3% less infection rate between those that had masks and those that were not. So it was in 0.3% of the people that had masks, they got it at a less rate. Now, if I came to any of you guys in mid-2019, before all this kicked off, and I told you can wear this cloth rag on your face all day long, and it will give you a 0.3% less chance of getting COVID-19, how many people would sign up for it? I'm going to guess not many. Now, the former CDC director, I don't know his name, so forgive me on that one, stated that the classroom tests were not actually done in a classroom. They were done in a closed environment with masks on dummies with a viral load shot right into the dummy's face. So these weren't done on actual children or actual tasks or classes or anything like that. So we are now at a point where there is no real study proving the effectiveness of masks in slowing or stopping the spread of COVID-19. Now I come to ask, how often are masks taken off during the day? The kids have, was it 2 mask breaks? I'm going to guess that's right. Where do the kids store their masks when they take them off? I'm going to guess in a pocket or on their ear or something of that nature. And how come they're not changed during the day? Now, how is it sanitary to take it off and put it back on and wear it around all day? And how is wearing a filthy germ collector on your face sanitary in any way, shape, or form, especially for an extended period of time? Now, I hear that despite all your efforts, the COVID is increasing, yet the plan to drive ahead with the methods that don't work. And we're going to keep doing that. So, I don't know, it seems as if there might be a word for that. Oh, also, masks have also been referred to as a minor inconvenience. Right now, let me remind you that wearing a gold star was once a minor inconvenience for a certain group of people. And how did that turn out for them? Thank you.
Okay, public comment is now closed. Minutes, I need a motion to accept the minutes dated August 17th, 2001. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, do we have any additions or changes to the August 17th?
I have an addition, well, I have changes that need to be made to both because it says that my vote is conditional many times throughout it, and that's not accurate. So,
okay, I thought, and to your point, the supervisor of the checklist validated your new address. I spoke to them. I thought that the minutes got updated to not say conditional. They did? Okay.
Yep. Okay, well, I still have something I'd like to play about that because of how inaccurate it was portrayed and how I was portrayed as being under an investigation. So I just have like a short clip from somebody to play. I hope it works.
My name is Bud Fitch. I'm the Elections Legal Counsel at the New Hampshire Secretary of State's office, returning Rochelle Kelly's call. I have not found any indication that you're under investigation by our offices. What I have found is that your local officials have entered into the statewide voter registration database, that we maintain the database, that the records are there as they enter them. A record indicating that on July 24th, 2021, you were sent what's called a 30-day letter notice of removal, indicating that if you don't respond to that by September 11, 2021 at 9 a.m., they're going to remove, based on information they have, that you no longer live at 47 Wildwood Road in Weare. You can correct your voting record and retain your status as a registered voter by either going to that session at that date or going in before that date to the town clerk's office with proof of your new domicile. All manner of things qualify as proof of your domicile: a utility bill, mail delivered to you by the United States Post Office, if you've updated your address on your driver's license or vehicle registration, both of which you ultimately are required to do, so they reflect your new address. Which I think actually for driver's license, it's either hard or impossible to get them to issue you a new license. They'll correct your address when they issue your next one. But there are a variety of other documents. If you shouldn't have to go this far, but you can take a deed to the property, just something that proves that you are domiciled there to the clerk. The clerk may have you complete a new voter registration form as part of that process. May want to take a copy of your proof of domicile. But essentially, you need to update with the town officials, ultimately the supervisors, but you can do it through your clerk, what your current domicile address is. Your status is a actively registered voter in Weare as of today, and it should remain that until September 11, 2021. And any rights you have as a voter, if you hold public office, your right to hold that public office and vote as a public official, all should be in place until the supervisors meet in September 11 to consider whether or not you should be removed. And if you correct your address, give them evidence that you've moved to your new address and where, before then, they should just then vote to update your voter record to reflect your new address. If you have further questions, please give me a call at 271.
So I just wanted to make it very clear that my votes were not conditional until September 11th. They stood as I voted, and even if I was found to not be a resident on September 11th, they could not have been undone because I would have held the office until September 11th. So I just wanted to point out the inaccuracies of everything that was said at the last meeting.
I'm processing that. I don't want to negate what you're saying. That was not the information that I got from the town, nor from our lawyers. I mean, it's great now that you are a resident and we're counting those votes. I did nothing devious, but that was the advice that I was given. So is there something you would change in the minutes?
If they don't say conditional anymore, then that's it, because they were
Okay.
never conditional.
Okay. Do we have any other amendments for the August 17th board retreat? No. Okay, so roll call votes to accept the minutes. Daniel?
Aye.
Christine?
Yes.
Wendy, yes. Sarah? Yes. Rochelle?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the August 17th board meeting minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Do we have any discussion, additional discussion there?
I'm assuming that one's also updated?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just
You
you
have access to it, but the retreat has...
And no voting.
The retreat had no voting in it, and the minutes of the board meeting have everything stricken about conditional.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Roll call vote to accept the minutes of the August 17th board meeting. Daniel?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Wendy, yes. Sarah?
Yes.
Rochelle?
Yes.
Okay. Under communication, I've forwarded items that came to me, to the entire board and the administration for record. I just want to thank Owen. You were amazing. So, a lot of us adults sometimes are passionate about our side, and we're having a hard time coming to a middle place where we can all act as a community. And both in your letter and what you said today, you've done a remarkable job modeling how we can sort of come together. So thank you. Did anyone else receive communications that I did not? No? Okay. Persons appear before the board. Is the PTO here tonight? Nope, okay.
We have a meeting.
Oh, right. Okay. All right, committee reports, curriculum.
The curriculum committee has not met yet.
Okay. Facilities. Michelle?
The facilities committee met. We talked about our plans for the CIP for the year. And we talked about staffing in our buildings for facilities. It's difficult right now being down staff as well as due to exposure. And so that was the discussion that happened at that meeting.
Thank you. Kindergarten.
No new information on kindergarten.
No policies tonight. Negotiations is a non-meeting. Did I miss something? No.
You skipped community relations.
Oh, sorry, yeah, because I was looking for my community, I have a community relations document I was looking for, sorry. So, transportation?
Nothing to report.
Okay. So, last time we had some timing issues with buses. Is that sort of straightened out now?
It continues to be a challenge. We are communicating with the bus company to update the routes on the websites to reflect the changes that have been made. But it's beginning to stabilize, and we're looking forward to their staff increasing in October.
Okay, I found my note on communications. So, a lot of media coverage about Holly Wilson, several outlets, the gold medal winner at the middle school. The Weare Facebook page continues to grow. Last week, we're up 80%. Reach is up 45%, and engagement is up 60% from the previous week. Most popular content is teacher bios. Okay, so wellness and safety.
Weare Middle School, we met on Friday afternoon, and they're going to continue working on a monthly wellness challenge, and they're going to increase it to connect with the kids also. We talked about the 5K, wanting to do it again, even though it's not until the spring. It takes a lot of planning and a lot of work. And field day for June, and there was a little bit of talk about the 8th grade promotion. Center Woods, we meet on Friday morning.
Thank you. All right, administration reports. Do we have principals' reports?
So what we did is we updated the strategic plan progress, and you have that, and you'll see that within each of our sections, we've updated what we've been working on, and that includes the schools. So if Jess and Sean want to highlight some of the work they've been doing.
Good evening again. There's lots of great things going on. I would like to, under facilities, just quickly mention that we are well aware of the sinkholes in front of our school, and I have been on the phone both to the state and our town trying to work on getting that resolved. There's a little bit of a disagreement over whose responsibility that is. So just to let the public know, I'm working my best on that. There's also an interesting update that there's a national shortage of paint for our fields. So we're having to look at an alternative to actually mark our fields for our sports. But as you know, and we've mentioned before, additional cleaning continues to happen in our building around particularly lunch tables, desktops, and our bathrooms. I did want to highlight amazing professional growth opportunities in our building for our staff. We've already looked at increasing our UDL perspective, SEL topics and resources, Canvas, moving forward with that, reviewing the strategic plan, which is what our written report addresses, but also how to collaborate with our staff and even students around next steps in regards to that. I did want to update the school board that we've moved forward with our intruder response training. That got put a little bit on hold because of some mitigating factors we put in place last year. And so we have now had our entire professional staff trained in and introduced to what to do with an intruder and that enhanced lockdown. The next step is this week in homerooms, our 4th through 8th graders will be introduced just to some talking points I wanted to share quickly so that our community understands where we're at. The first talking point is that our goal is just to keep our community safe and learning. In any emergency, we would listen and follow the directions of the staff or adult, that we would always notify an adult if there is someone unknown to us in our school or on our property. And this is the difference between what we used to do, but this is how we'll be introducing it to students, that we should try and make it as difficult as possible for an intruder to enter our school or classroom, and that students may be directed to help keep an intruder out of a space by blocking an entrance into a classroom with items or furniture. So relatively low key. Those are talking points that will also be tweaked regarding the age and the developmental age of the students in the classroom. Those discussions will be followed by smaller group discussions so that any student who needs to process information has a smaller group to do that in. This has already gone out, but our open house is going to be virtual, as will our parent-teacher conference. I do have some really exciting news about our sports. All our sports teams have already started and have already played. Any of you who are following our girls field hockey team know that so far we have been undefeated. We continue that streak. We've had 2 shutouts, one 13-0, the other 12-0. What I'm most proud about is not just those scores, but the fact that what happened is our teams took and had students play different positions, so we weren't necessarily playing to our strengths, and allowed our team to develop more while not running the score up any more than was necessary with those wins. Our boys did open with a win in soccer. Our girls did fall in soccer, but it was a hard-fought game, and they played very well. I don't know the result of our cross-country meet. That first meet was today. We did iReady testing a little earlier this year, and we've already started Tier 2 intervention with that data. This community of educators in our building have a lot on their plates, but one thing that was added was moving to Canvas, and I can't tell you how impressed I've been with how they've embraced that and are looking to use that tool to support students and to support learning. Part of our strategic plan has been goal setting, and every student is also setting both an academic and SEL goal, and we're well on our way of having all those. I wanted to quickly tell you that our goal setting is our SEL theme for September. In October, we'll be working on growth mindset, and every month thereafter, a different theme for our school. We have been trying to use VLAX to support our advanced math students because we did not have the staffing to support a separate class. I just also, in all transparency, want you to know VLAX is overloaded, and so we have not been able to meet the needs in our school just for that math class. It's just, the plan was for them to take that and get support during Flex Walk. Should they need additional support from a teacher in our building, it hasn't quite worked the way we would hope. The other highlight I'd like to bring to your attention, though, is the success of our music program this year. We are being very careful with spreading students out. We have a beautiful space next door that allows us to do that, but Serena Gorham has worked diligently, and our beginning band program, our chorus, it's all growing by leaps and bounds. We are still in need of some staffing. Particularly, we still need some support staff. A couple paras would be very, very helpful in our building, in addition to needing an adjustment counselor / social worker in our building. And thank you.
Thank you. Jess?
So to piggyback off of what we discussed last month for the strategic plan at Center Woods, we continue to work on building connections with our staff and with our students. I've been trying to highlight that in my newsletters as much as possible. I do believe, though, that a picture says 1,000 words, and so I've been trying to use more pictures in my newsletters because seeing student engagement in a picture is much easier than trying to describe it in the classroom. Our entire faculty is working on a common goal. UDL, or Universal Design for Learning, is basically 1,000 best practices all put into one to remove barriers for students in learning. And out of all of those puzzle pieces, we've identified a specific set of pieces that we're going to focus on. And so as a faculty, we're going to continue to focus on customizing information to students, varying methods of response and navigation for students, optimizing access to tools and technologies, and offer alternatives for auditory and visual information. At our setting of the stage meeting, which is basically a meeting between an admin and a teacher at the beginning of the year to set the stage for their goals and what they'll be working on, we've been talking through these 4 bullet points and how that they are going to be able to do that in their classroom. We've also tied this to the educator student learning objective and their professional development goals to really narrow their focus on what they're working on. Our UDL team, again, Universal Design for Learning, is providing professional development that relates to those 4 bullet items throughout the year. And we're excited because despite all of the struggles that we pointed out today, it is great when we can focus on the work that we're actually paid to do. So it's fun work. We talked about building staff connections, and we were trying to figure out the best way to do that given everyone's varying comfort levels with getting together. So one of the ways that we're doing that is that we're trying to find examples of Portrait of a Learner in our current practices as professionals. So anyone can submit something called Being Awesome to the office that just talks about ways in which we see our professional staff fulfilling those Portrait of a Learner competencies. And we put those in the nuts and bolts. Another thing that we're doing that we're trying to get people to get into each other's classrooms to see each other, even if it's from afar, masked or unmasked. You still want to be able to communicate and be able to share practices. So I'm doing this silly little thing once a week where I go around and I take a picture, like a Zooma, where it's really, really zoomed in, and the staff have to kind of go around and find it. It sounds a little silly, but it is nice that staff can actually see each other's space. And there's one kindergarten classroom where when I took the picture, so many people said, I've never even been down there. And so that I think is important. And finally, the big work that we've been working on is trying to work at building capacity in our teachers and how we are going to operate our teams in order to enhance collaboration and decision making. And to do that, I've been working with our team leaders and SAU staff in order to sort of redefine how we do business. That's going to be a work in progress through the whole year. We're not going to hit the ground running with that. But in doing this, we're going to also be talking about our processes for decision making, how we communicate decision making, where to go to get that communication, and keep sort of a live handbook of that. And so that's something that takes a lot of work, but we're excited to do it. And our open house is also Thursday. And I think that's it, unless you have questions.
And is your open house remote as well?
It is, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Jess?
All right, I'll give you a little update at the SAU level. So I'm going to share just 3 major things, and they've been pretty all-consuming this summer for us. The first one is Canvas. We do have a new learning management system. Canvas has been adopted at the state level, and it is offered free to all public schools in New Hampshire. and it's a PK through 21 solution, meaning that all of the public colleges and universities in the state of New Hampshire are also using Canvas. So that does create a nice continuum for our students when they leave John Stark to go on and know what the LMS is at their college or university, if that's the path that they take. We have a SAU-wide Canvas implementation team, which is 10 teachers from across the SAU who have worked over the summer to design templates and create professional development opportunities in order to help their colleagues get started with this new tool in this coming school year. This is basically one of the major tools that we'll use as part of our blended learning environment. Now that we are a one-to-one school district and we have all these amazing Chromebooks, we don't want to lose sight of how to use those now that we're coming out of remote learning and hopefully never going back. So Canvas is, as an LMS or learning management system, is an integral part of that. In the past, students have used Google Classroom, and in many ways, Google Classroom is kind of like having a stack of papers on your desk of all the different things that you're doing, where Canvas is more like having those things organized in a binder. It's how we get access to Zoom now, also for free and offered by the state. Discovery Education is also another tool the state has purchased and is available to every school district that adopts Canvas. So that's been a big part of our work this summer. Report cards are another part. So we've gone through the process last year, and it had started prior to the pandemic, of looking at our competencies K-5 and also doing a quick review 6 through 8. And we have now made some significant changes in those competencies and how we will report them. So report cards coming up in this next term will look significantly different than they have in the past, hopefully a little more manageable and meaningful. So instead of having every single learning target listed out as an individual score, we will be reporting out at the competency level. And so what that means essentially is that the report card will be a little shorter. The statements about what students can do and how the progress they've made towards mastery will be a little bit larger, so they'll be more meaningful, hopefully. We will have parent guides for each grade level that will indicate which learning targets are taught in each term. So if you do want that added extra layer of information to know what makes up the competency, we'll have parent guides that will tell us that. So that's been a big chunk of our work this summer and in the start of the year. And then to piggyback on what Jess shared, we're doing slightly different teaming structures at the SAU level as well. We've had some standing committees over the years. They've done great work. But to continue on in our competency-based journey, we're revisioning and rethinking how we organize ourselves. And so instead of having standing ELA, math, social studies, and science teams, we'll have assessment, grading, and reporting teams. We'll have a multi-tiered system of supports team, which I talked to you about at the board retreat. We will continue to have a professional growth team. And so the teams will be less about the silos of content and more about the work that's being done by our teachers and the learning that's happening in our classrooms.
Questions for Natasha?
And I just want to make sure we highlight, I know you mentioned it in the community outreach report, but the Weare Middle School Award for Best of the 603, they are the gold winners. And in the write-up, it says, Weare Middle School is not just a school, but rather a true community of learners and teachers. As a community, the school respects and appreciates the unique abilities of all those who enter their doors. The faculty learns from the students while also supporting them to reach their potential. Parents are amazing partners who help support this vibrant community by giving their time and effort. So just, I want to make sure we recognize that publicly. So huge kudos to Sean and her entire staff and the whole community.
Thank you. Okay, manifests are going digitally, and then
COVID update?
Yep.
So the COVID update is in your board drive. There hasn't been any significant additions to that in the past month. I think we can expect to see some additions in there next month. And then I just wanted to take the chance to let you know that the DOE 25, it's that time again to have that signed. And so that will be in your DocuSign in the next week or so. And so for anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's the financial report that we submit yearly to the DOE. It has an effect on how the tax rate gets set, because we also provide that to the Department of Revenue. So I please ask you to turn that around quickly. We need full participation on that, all 5 signatures. And so I will send it out soon, and basically the due date I have to get that over that is October 1st. So you'll see that soon.
Good. Okay, personnel, we have a resignation and 2 nominations. Do I have one or more motions to accept those?
Wendy, can I just interrupt? The nomination for the grade 8 math, we didn't get a formal letter of resignation. It was an abrupt departure.
Sure.
And so we need the resignation of Justin Chase to
Added
be
to the list?
accepted
Okay.
to do the nomination of Michael Costanza.
So we have 2 resignations? And 2 nominations. Okay, so
Yes.
we need a motion to accept the 2 resignations.
Yes, please.
Okay.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Daniel?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Wendy, yes. Sarah? Yes. Rochelle?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the 2 nominations?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, do we have any discussion? Roll call vote to accept the nominations. Daniel?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Wendy, yes. Sarah?
Yes.
Rochelle?
Yes.
Okay. No policies. Now, what everybody's been waiting for, the old business. So before we talk, we need a motion. Do we have any motions around?
I'd like to make a motion to table this indefinitely.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion. Roll call vote to table talking about masks indefinitely. Daniel?
Yes.
Christine?
No.
Wendy, no. Sarah? No. Rochelle?
Yes.
The motion does not pass. Do we have any other motions?
I'd like to make a motion to table it for the next 5 years.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion.
I think it needs to be tabled because the students can't be putting up with the fact that it's going to change based on how everyone's feeling that month. And they need to know that they have control over their own body to have the choice on what goes on their face, and that it shouldn't be something that's discussed by people who don't know them. And that's why I think it needs to be tabled and not brought back up.
Any other discussion?
We made a decision last month on this, and so I'm just seeing that it's likely to just keep running in circles. It's going to be, is this what we want? And choice is really the only option. We're here, we're in the United States, we have freedoms, and parents have freedoms over their choices for their kids. So this really shouldn't be an option. I have other opinions on things, but my main commitment to this is that it's ultimately a parent's choice, and we need to leave it that way.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote to table for 5 years. Daniel?
Yes.
Christine?
No.
Wendy, no. Sarah?
No.
Rochelle?
Yes.
Motion does not carry. Any other motions?
I'd like to make a motion to allow Superintendent Coe to follow the DHHS guidelines.
Okay, do we have a second?
Can you repeat the motion, the phrasing of the motion?
Yep, I'd like to make a motion to allow Superintendent Coe to follow DHHS guidelines.
Do you have a second?
Point of clarification, are you saying that you are voting to give the superintendent the power to make the decision to follow it or to not follow it and take that power away from the board? Or are you saying you want her to follow the guidelines as they're written now?
I would like to give her the option that if she feels that targeted masking in a situation is something that she needs to do, I want to be able to give her that option to do so.
Okay, do we have a second? No. Okay, let me make a compromise motion. I would like to make a motion that we follow the John Stark guidance, which is if we have an active cluster in a school, we have targeted mask use, and targeted mask use is in transition in the classrooms or in places where there's higher risk activities. If you then have a multiple cluster or targeted outbreak in a school, then it becomes universal for the 14 days until that outbreak is cleared. So that is my motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second because that's what I was meaning.
Okay. Do we have discussion?
I do have discussion. I am not a medical professional. I am an educator, and I know when I need to follow certain guidelines, and I feel most comfortable following medical guidelines in this situation. I think Dr. Coe last year proved that she did what was best for our district.
So here's some thoughts that I wrote down. I hope that everyone walks away from here realizing that I am trying my best, I hope everyone on the board, to really listen to everyone's point of view. I read every single email that was sent to me, and it was a lot of emails. And I have put a lot of thought into this from day one, and I am in the trenches. I am an educator. I am in middle school that started with masks optional and went to masks mandatory. I know what it is like to be an educator right now. I know what it is like to be a parent right now. And I don't envy any of you. It's difficult. And while I agree with a lot of the things that were said, and I want to say let kids be kids, and I do value parent choice, as you understand from my last vote, I think it would be irresponsible of me to not heed the plea from the people in the trenches and allow them to do the job that they need to do. I do think it's unfortunate that they are spending so much time doing contact tracing and running the tests, but that unfortunately is the situation that the state has put them in, and they don't have the choice to not do that. And we are losing valuable resources by not doing all of the mitigation strategies that we can, regardless of whether or not we feel that they are effective, because this is what the state has given us. And so I really would encourage all of you who feel strongly and who have come week after week to speak to us, to talk to people at the state, to email the governor or to email DHHS, because right now everyone's hands are tied, and we cannot keep having teachers and administrators and superintendents using all of their resources trying to do what they have to do. And so I really want you to understand that while I wish this was just a case of parent choice, it is not just about parent choice. It is about a lot more than that. And I think it is my duty to heed the request of the people that are experiencing this on a daily basis.
Any other discussion?
I have something to say. So last month we voted masks optional. We did not vote that distancing and the other safety measures were optional, even though the school obviously didn't do them. So this is completely self-inflicted because their guidance was still having the kids stay with the same, class and having distancing and all that stuff that they're not doing. So they take the masks away, they take the distancing away, they take every safety measure away, but then they blame it on the masks. But what about everything else that they had the responsibility and duty to do that we told them to do and they didn't do it? That's what caused this. It has nothing to do with masks. It has to do with them failing the children and failing to do what we gave them the duty to do. And then, on top of that, every single school year, kids get sick. That's what happens at the beginning of the year. It's called beginning of the school year cold to most families. That happens. It's nothing out of the ordinary. It happens every single year, regardless of COVID or any other outbreak. So that's nothing new. And then, one of the principals mentioned that for fun, she was having the people in the building go around the school to find a picture, which is all really fun and, good for the atmosphere. But if you're having such an outbreak and you're so worried, why are you sending the staff all over the entire school to spread their germs everywhere? If you were so worried, why are you having all these people go all over the building to spread their germs? I understand that it might be hard for you guys, but you guys are doing it to yourselves. You were still supposed to have distancing and you were still supposed to follow the other guidelines in the opening plan, and you have made it very clear that that hasn't been happening. So why hasn't that been happening? You can't not do everything else and then blame it on the one thing that we made optional for children.
I'd like to tell both the principals you have not failed, and your staff has not failed. You have come together. You've done a great job. You are working within your means, and please know that that is not the feeling of the entire board.
I didn't say it was, and I'm not finished. Also, the matrix that was made by Jackie to keep the community updated says that there's one cluster in the school and it's 3 children. But yet I keep hearing of these multiple clusters with the multiple children, but this has yet to update to be high, which is the 2 or more clusters in the school. It's at medium, which is 1 cluster in the school. And then Weare Middle School is at low, which is 0 or sporadic cases with no evidence of transmission within the school. So I am unclear of where these statistics are coming from because it's not the school's matrix that they use to keep track of this, because this was just updated on the 19th before the email went out about the multiple clusters in the school.
Yes, please.
So first about the matrix, we are waiting to hear from DHHS to confirm an outbreak. We're fairly certain that's going to happen. We want to be able to communicate with the parents before I update that to read that. We didn't want to be fear-mongering and wanted, knowing this discussion was going to take place, but also understanding we are working through clusters. We are doing the paperwork, we are doing those calls, and we have multiple clusters, so we understand that the definition, that's going to move tomorrow to high. And additionally, we followed the plan exactly as you approved. Initially, we were starting school with mask optional. We were also starting without as much focus on social distancing and the other measures. When we moved to medium impact, that's when we instituted all those other mitigation factors. That happened this week. We have started those, and it very quickly is moving to high impact. So we have implemented, and these 2 people have implemented that plan exactly as they've been asked to do.
And I can confirm that My husband was in this weekend trying to measure every single seat, as was a whole bunch of your teachers. And thank you so much for giving up your personal time to help us move to that medium level. Any more discussion?
I have discussion. So we had, I can't remember your name, I'm sorry, but she came up and said that one of the biggest thing, what is it?
Nurse Marsh.
I'm sorry, Nurse Marsh. Yes, you came up and you said that one of your biggest things was you were seeing parents sending their kids sick, right, from home. And, you know, obviously that's something that's going to happen as a teacher. When I was a teacher, it happened a lot. We can't make everybody obviously do the right thing when it comes to that. Now, you did say that there was a screening in place last year that is not in place this year. So it's like a parental pre-screening. I'd be interested to find out more about that. So that's something I'd be interested to discuss a little bit more. If that's something that would stop kids from coming, whether or not they have a mask on or not. There's no data to show that the mask is going to stop transmission with these kids. However, at the same time, it's the same thing like Mr. Flaherty said. We've got 100% at certain age levels, 99% at other age levels of recovery rate. So we have, in a way, we have this, you know, what you could call like a seasonal cold thing going around. Who knows how many come back positive, whatever, right? We have just kids coming in with all different kinds of things. I think there was like 50 something is what she said. 50 number was like 50 something recently. But there is the issue of the tests having false positives still. We know that that's an issue. But the other factor that I haven't seen looked at is, okay, so I understand kids are out right now. Kids, they're out because they failed the test, or, you know, they tested positive, or they had symptoms, right? So if they did, for example, if they did in fact have COVID, or they did have whatever they're spreading, so maybe it's not COVID, maybe it's something else, right? Nobody wants sick people at school no matter what. I mean, that's ideally what we don't want. They're going to get something called immunity or antibodies to whatever it is that they have, okay? So I didn't hear a lot of discussion on this as being something that right now we might experience. For example, we might experience some numbers going up, and then we're going to experience, these same kids are not going to end up sick again, at least for months. And my question is, what did we have for clusters last year? And is it measured by the same data points?
We had one cluster right at the end of January, I believe, at Center Woods. But we had no other in the whole SAU.
That was January 2021?
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
2021.
Yes,
Thank you.
okay, all right. Let's say that. Yeah, and so I guess basically where I'm going with this is I'm just having a hard time in changing my decision in any way, shape, or form due to, you know, a limited amount of active cases. And the hard thing is right now, it's just we've got, you know, all these other things that we didn't put in place. And I know you said you just put them in place last week, some of the other social distancing measures and things like that. It's hard because if we believe those are effective, it's going to be, in a week's time, it may not show its effectiveness. Like, for example, if it's only been a few days of lack of contact or you know, of the social distancing between kids and other kids are out, it could be that, you know, the effect of that may show up next week because of the amount of time it takes to contract something, and these kids might have come in contact with it prior to those distancing measures. So my concern is going ahead and turning this decision over that was pretty clearly in my mind stated by the people who elected me for this position to make, I just, I having a hard time with that.
Sorry, I would just like to correct, we didn't have a cluster, we had transmission. We had one example of transmission in the school last year, and that was in January. So that means from one student to another. This year, we've had at least 6 examples of 4. Well, the 3 clusters, so 7 examples of transmission.
And was that with pre-screening and staggered arrivals and these things that we talked about?
The transmission between one student to another last year happened within the other. We had the things in place. Yep.
Okay, so you had those other procedures in place. All right.
Any other discussion?
So before jumping back to mandating masks, why don't we mandate the other safety measures first?
So, these rules are a point of clarification, right? So I think we're not discussing mandating masks. We're discussing giving Jackie the ability to, if a cluster is identified, to say that those students in contact need to be masked. So I think mandatory masks would be all the students all the time wearing masks. What the motion on the table right now is not that. It is that if there is substantial transmission or a cluster outbreak, that it would follow the grid. So those are 2 different things. I heard her say at most 14 days if there was an outbreak is what the students would be wearing. And I hear I certainly do. I believe in immune systems. I have a child in daycare who has had a runny nose, and it is what it is because he's a child. However, I think regardless of all of that, we are still, again, the school still has to follow those procedures. Even if we let all their immune systems work, every time a kid goes to the nurse's office, they have to go through that process. It is not a choice. And so if we limit the amount of kids, even if it's not COVID, if it's limiting the amount of kids that have a runny nose that go to the office, or limiting the number of kids that are sick that enter the school, we need to lessen their load. At my school, we are fully staffed. We aren't dealing with the staff shortages that there are, and we are tight. I can't even imagine what these teachers and administrators are going through right now. And I think, that's my thought.
Okay.
I actually have a question about, because we're pointing to masks as being I guess a safety net, right? And I've heard that word. But what comes into play here is not necessarily that it's just that a mask is going to fix this problem for them, right? We had, obviously something was different last year. These social distancing things have been implemented, right? But I feel we haven't given those enough time to work. But can someone tell me what was involved in the parental pre-screening process?
I mean, parents filled out a screener that said, does your child have a runny nose or any other symptoms of COVID? And if so, you weren't supposed to bring them to school, and the nurse would follow up with them.
And they did this daily?
Every day.
Online?
Yep. It was not wildly popular, and it's no longer being recommended from DHHS as an effective way of mitigating COVID-19. The other thing we did, we shifted to remote for 2 weeks when we had exposure in the class. That is not something we're doing now. So, and we're also, close contacts are not required to stay home What we need is people to partner in not sending symptomatic people to school, but also the likelihood of spread is much increased because we have people who were exposed in school, in classes.
Could I just, with what Dan's been saying, with the PUP, if parents didn't do it and the kids arrived, a staff member had to do that. And when you pulled up in the morning, they had staff members at each of the doors letting the different grade levels in. And from what I'm hearing, we unfortunately don't have that staffing to do that. And there were a big group of people on sometimes, especially on Monday mornings, that weren't getting that PUP, and the kids had to wait and do that. The second thing too is, if I'm, please correct me if I'm wrong, when the middle school kids came back from hybrid in April, that distancing was pretty much null and void. So we have gone through a time with masks and not having that distancing, and we did not have any transmission during that time.
Go ahead, Jess.
I just want to be able to thoroughly answer Dan's question. So the reason why we were able to do the screening was because we adjusted the drop-off time to give us a 45-minute window to be able to accomplish that. So, right, so if we do screening and do it the right way, it will have an impact on one of two things. One is our arrival time, or one is our instructional time. If we move our instructional time back, that's a possibility. It's an actionable possibility that won't disrupt parents' schedules, but I just want it to be clear that that will be an impact.
No, I understand. I appreciate it. I actually just wanted to know more about it because I wasn't aware of how the inner workings of it were. Just trying to brainstorm other things, because I do feel like in a way that this is definitely premature because the effectiveness of masks, I have read many things on it. I know lots of things. I'm not a health expert. I mean, I am elected to the board though, so I do my due diligence, and I feel that maybe, these other measures being implemented just last week, and, this season coming in, I mean, we're going to have definitely, you're going to have lots of things with fall, with the leaves and the allergies and things like that. So lots of things can be misconstrued as being, we can't be scared of every little thing that comes down the pike. So if we do see, if we do see a difference in these numbers and we do see them go down, I still won't, I want to be sure that it was the masks that did it. I really don't feel that the masks are going to be the solution to this problem. And I do realize that you do have things that the procedures that you have to go through if somebody shows a symptom of anything, and, the emailing the state and the governor and, DHHS and all the, entities that are putting that extra load on the school system is a great recommendation for sure. But I just, for Weare, I just think that this, I understand the concern with the, I guess, cases, so to speak, but I don't believe it's to any sort of detriment, and I don't believe it's masks that are going to fix the problem.
Okay. Good. Okay, the motion on the table is when we're medium, which is single cluster, we have targeted masks, and at high, with a larger outbreak or multiple clusters within that school, they have a universal mask. Roll call vote. Daniel?
No.
Christine?
Yes.
Wendy? Yes, sorry. Sarah?
Yes.
Rochelle?
No.
Okay, the motion passed. The next, you're out of order. Please, I do not want to call the police. You're welcome to listen. Okay. So, new business is, New business, adopt school. Enough, out, out, out. If you cannot sit and observe, you need to leave. Yep. Okay. Good. New business is adopt school board goals as defined. Rochelle, you're out of order.
Your opinion doesn't matter to me.
Okay, but
You're
don't
out-
approach the table, please.
Out of order.
You are making me very uncomfortable.
You're making my children uncomfortable.
Jackie, we might need to call someone.
Yeah, especially
You already
for
did?
the
Thank you.
people who hired.
Do this on this so everyone can hear, especially for the psychos in the group who hired
me.
a private
Point of order.
investigator
Point of
to
order.
follow me everywhere. The
Point
group
of
that includes
order.
Wendy and Christine.
Point of order. What is, okay.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
And Patrick, of course. The screenshots of the group that you're in.
Can we please stop
and
approaching
have
the
been
table? If you're gonna
stalking me
leave, thank
for the past, 4 weeks. Literally driving by my house and taking photos.
Point of order, this is not
Psychos.
something that needs to be discussed in
order.
this meeting. If you have something
Out
to
of
say
order.
to one of the members, please do it on your own time. I'm sorry. Excuse me, we are trying to conduct business here. Take a deep breath, excuse yourself, and come back if you need to.
No, I'm good.
New business, adopt school goals. Do we have a motion to accept? Do we have a motion to accept the school board goals as defined?
So moved.
Do I have a second? I'm sorry. No. School board goals that we came up with last time?
Hey, Wendy.
Second?
May
Okay.
I suggest we table that discussion?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. I think that's fair. So then the next is the ratification of memorandums. We had a pre-meeting to go over this. Do I have a motion to accept the WEA MOA?
Motion to accept.
Do I have a second?
I
Discussion?
second.
Roll call vote to accept the WEA MOA. Daniel?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Wendy, yes?
Yes.
Sarah? Yes, sorry. Yes. Michelle, yes, okay. Do we have a motion to accept the WESS MOA?
I'll make the motion.
Great. Do
I'll
I have a
second.
second? Okay, any discussion? Roll call vote to accept the WESS MOA. Daniel?
Yes.
Yes.
No discussion.
No discussion? What's that?
You asked if there was discussion, right?
Oh, yeah.
I have no discussion.
No, okay. No, and then I asked, do you approve? the
Yes,
giving-
and that's why I said yes. yeah.
Okay, thank you. Christine?
Yes.
Wendy, yes. Sarah?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Okay. We're at the time for the second public comment. If you can keep it civil. No motion, okay. No, I don't think, okay. Do we have anything in non-public? What? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay.
My name's Joe Cassoni. Is this on?
Mhm.
Is it working? My name's Joe Cassoni. I live on 211 Colby Road. I just want to know what's going on here because, I've read a lot of posts lately on the internet, Facebook, specifically about Sarah. I'm not going to dime any people out, but there was a harassment campaign targeted at her to send her emails just up until this point. You two are on a lot of those messages. A lot of people have the messages from Weare Inclusive Facebook page. Is this Dr. Coe right here? Dr. Coe, do you know about the Weare Inclusive Facebook page? You don't, are you a part of it?
The only thing I have posted is.
No, ma'am, excuse me.
No,
I have a moment, right? I have a moment.
but you addressed to me.
Dr. Coe,
I did not know, but this
So are you a
is
part of
not
this?
a time.
No, I'm
to-
just
I'm not
asking.
answering questions.
Because
I'm
it
not-
all revolves around everything. Parent choice, masks, I get it. I get people are afraid. I get people want kids to be healthy, happy. But that's where it stops. The targeting thing, targeting Rochelle, a lot of sketchy stuff's going on, guys. It's not right. It's literally beneath the school board. And, you know, when things like this happen behind the scenes, We're Inclusive is a 55-person Facebook page. So I'm not surprised if you got 55 emails last night just talking directly to you and no one else on the board, which is fine. You can make your own opinion, your own decision on everything. But what it comes down to is the school board's supposed to make these decisions, you know, with talking to the public, the general public, not inclusive Facebook pages of just a bunch of people in town with the same idea. And you can kind of, you know, take that into perspective. It's not right. What you're doing is you're raising a little, you know, Facebook army to go after one person. That's not right. Like, we can have discussions ourselves, adults, but it's really about the kids, right? I have a child ready for pre-K. I don't want to send them to the Weare school districts if they're going to put masks on my kid's face. I'm pretty sure my son will need an IEP. I don't understand how he can even wear a mask in the doctor's office. He cries all the time. Everybody seen the video of the child in daycare crying because they put a mask on him? It's just, you guys say kids are resilient. They're not. I mean, kids are very emotional and stuff affects them. And it's gonna really, you know, hurt them later on in life after what we've done to them. So make your decision, fine. That's great. That's democracy. But this is really sketchy what's going on. Brent, Mr. Dickerson, I believe your name is, he's right. People are going to come for your seats. And not because it's just out of, like, you know, a meanness or targeting, but it's because of what's going on. It's not right. Okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So first, I just want to say to the administration, please pass along to your staff the sincere thanks. It's something that none of us that work in corporate America can really understand unless you know an educator. For those who have educators, including parents, I consider a parent an educator. Thank you, but it's something I want to make sure that the superintendent, please pass along a thanks because it's important. And in some cases, I hope that you do something special for the staff because I think there's a lot more mental and stress that the staff is getting that we're also forgetting as a community that we should really thank the staff more because I could, heaven forbid, see some people that have to be in certain situations where it's easier to complain than come up with a solution. And with that, I offer this crazy idea. If you have ideas as you need help in your schools, for those of us, you believe in masks, you don't believe in masks, let's volunteer. Is there a possibility, if you mentioned, Dan or Daniel, about not having the staff, maybe asking parents to volunteer, that'll take the risk to be here for you so your staff can do their job. As a community, let's come together with ideas. Masks or no masks, there may be other solutions that come to the table, as Dan, I think you were alluding to tonight, and I look forward to seeing if anybody can volunteer anytime, if it's an hour or two. I'll ask my employer. I'm sure others in the community will as well. Good luck and thank you.
Thank you.
And I highly encourage, just as a final thought, for what I had to see that student who came with their bravery today, to see what happened tonight, I fear for his safety because now he has to go home with that. And for the kids that are watching, including my own, just know that I'm recommending that you all get the protection you need in here as you see fit. If it's boundaries, if it's having officials or going fully remote in your closed sessions, I want to make sure you all feel safe as well. Because I don't feel comfortable coming back until you feel safe and I saw your faces. So good luck with that.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have proposals for future agendas?
I have a question.
Okay.
Jessica Fuller, I was already up. I just need a clarification on what the consequences will be when my children show up without masks on, if it is asked of them.
So I believe that, I think we talked a year ago. I think you can talk to the administration and they'll work with you around your special IEP and issues, right?
I just wanted to know for the general public and on public record if there will be consequences for those who do not wear masks.
Sure, so today we've made the charge on the targeted mask, and now the administration will develop their plan, and I'm sure they'll communicate it.
In the same way, we followed the policy when masks were optional, and we didn't do anything when kids weren't wearing masks or were wearing masks. We will enforce that students need to wear masks unless they have.
So there's no consequences?
No, there would be consequences. People need to wear masks for 14 days. While we try to eliminate the transmission, is what I just heard the vote to be.
Okay.
Go ahead. Right here, and then we'll end with our nurse.
Bonnie Rauscher, 273 North Stark Highway. I am a Centerwoods teacher, third grade. This is my 34th year. I know what seasonal allergies look like. I know what a cold looks like and what all the symptoms are. I know what a flu looks like, and I know how it spreads from one student to the next, to the next, to the next. Last year, everybody wore masks. Students did not have a problem with it. They very quickly just, okay, we'll wear a mask, and they kept their space, and they did a fantastic job. Last year, I had 13 students in my classroom because many of them were home remote. I got to work with that entire class all year long, other than the times that we had to go out on remote learning. Mandating masks, that's different than targeted masking. Targeted masking is for absolutely when there is a need in the school and when we're looking at a group of people and we need to stop. We need to just have that targeted masking. We're not asking for everybody to be masked all day long, every day for the rest of the school year. People say masks don't work. 13 kids last year in my room. I had not one case of the flu in my room, not one. I had 2 colds. 2 kids had colds. You will never be able to tell me that masks don't work. There's your proof. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, go ahead.
Marcia Majors, school nurse again. I just wanted to say for students who are not able to wear a mask for medical reasons, I accept doctor's notes and we work with that.
Thank you.
Hi, Holly Shelley again. Just a couple of points of clarification that I hope you guys can speak to. I know John Stark just started their targeting masking program yesterday. From my understanding with reading SAU 19's plan, which is what you mirrored, that targeted masking meant particular groups and classrooms and cohorts that were going to be masked. John Stark today is fully masked in almost all situations except when they're sitting in their classrooms. That's the only time that they're able to take their masks off now. So I'm just wondering if target masking at Centerwoods is going to mean the same thing, or are we actually going to be look at the classrooms that are affected? So I hope that you can speak to that. And the second thing is I do, of course, wish, as I said in my first public comment, you know, we took all of these measures away and we didn't expect the worst to happen. I think you guys should be more angry with DHHS and the amount of crap that you guys have to do for kids that really just have colds. It's kind of annoying, it's kind of stupid, and I think you guys probably all agree with that as well. But as far as the targeted things that you're doing, you know, to Dan's point where you said that you're starting to implement those measures in the schools, I do think that it would have behooved you guys to see if those work. Because what is masking? What's going to change tomorrow? Everything changed. So we don't know if that's what changed it or if all the other stuff changed it. So now we've added masks to this as well. And now we really aren't going to know the answer to our questions whether or not they work or not. So I just think that, outbreak is going to turn into probably another outbreak. The kids are sick this year like they weren't last year. We're doing things differently. If the expectation was that kids weren't going to get sick, then we're crazy to think that. But with all of these things that are probably going to keep happening, 14 days, it's probably going to turn into another 14 days. It's probably going to turn into another 14 days. I really just wish that you guys would have seen if the other mitigation factors would have worked first to truly understand if masks would have made a difference or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Brent.
So I have two questions. One at the high school level. Now, Brad come home and said that a senior was sent home today as disciplinary action for not wearing a mask. Is that true?
I do not know, actually.
Well, we're all kind of clear as mud as far as the disciplinary actions that will take place. Are we going to start sending kids home?
We may, yes.
So we want them in school,
Yes.
but we're going to send them home.
Yep.
It's like giving someone with an attendance problem time off.
Yep.
Okay. Second question. Bree's telling me that they actually go around in a circle and change classrooms. Is that correct?
Rule of order here. You're not
Brianna's
really
in
supposed to-
sixth grade.
Yes, we
They
have,
changed physical classrooms.
As
I
the
forget what they call it.
as the opening plan indicates, we are opening as typically as we normally did until we move along in that continuum and add some of those mitigation pieces.
Okay, and the reason I ask is, she's 11. It's not always communicated clearly what's going on, so thank you. But moving forward, if we have to mitigate, wouldn't it make more sense to move 4 teachers rather than 4 classrooms?
So currently, the middle school is still at low impact. The masks
So we're
do
going to wait.
not apply.
We're going to wait until we have a big uproar again.
Well, I think I now have the ability to, if there is a cluster at Weare Middle School, to shift to the other mitigation factors, which include limiting some of the movement of students. That's part of the plan. We haven't got there yet. We have got there at Centerwoods.
Okay, well, thank you very much for clarifying. If you cannot maintain control, resign. There's plenty of us that will take over.
Thank you. I think, I thought I answered, maybe not, that the administration now has to go take our direction and create that plan.
But I think it would be very similar to John Stark, is how I'm understanding it. And I think we identified it in the plan. I just want to make sure that the plans are all slightly different in the different districts. But it would be during transit, and it would be the students who have been exposed should definitely be wearing masks, and if we can't maintain distance. But I know Jess has a plan to try to build in distance. That said, if we do go into, if it is a confirmed outbreak, which we are anticipating it is, that is universal masking for 14 days.
So can we do mask weeks back to back, as in one 14-day cluster and then another 14-day cluster, so 28 days for one group?
You mean if during the 14 days another cluster developed?
Or in the same group? So if Tom and Timmy are in a group with Bob and Sally, if Tom and Timmy test positive, their cluster is affected, right? They get 14 days of masking. They come back, and then Bob and Sally test positive, right? Are they going to be doing masks back to back?
When we're doing targeted, it'd be the students who are impacted, who were exposed, and we would continue the transition in transit when kids are walking in the halls. If we moved, at that point, we're talking multiple clusters, so we move into the universal masking, because it would be an outbreak.
Okay, and
We're hoping we don't get that far.
let's hope not. And if I make a quick comment to the ma'am over there, it said you guys made them wear masks last year and they didn't get sick, so the kids didn't build up their immune system properly. And then when the kids came back this year and they were exposed to people that hadn't been around, they all got sick because they didn't have the proper immune system built up. And correct me if I'm wrong, but again, that seems like a self-inflicted wound.
Okay. Good.
Jeff Carpentier again on Roosevelt Road. As the gentleman over here to my left said, if you can't keep control, you should resign. I think that it then is only fair for the person who's causing the disruption to resign. Rochelle, it's time to go. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Megan Thelen, River Road. I have a question about the COVID testing. It's now taking 4 hours for someone to wait to get a COVID test and then 4 days to get it back. Milford is using some of their COVID money to actually do the tests in the nurse's office. In the nurse's office. Is that a possibility for us to do? Because we're going to have someone who goes out, gets tested, gets COVID, comes back 4 days later with COVID. By the time we start targeted testing, targeted masks, we're already going to be exposed. So that cluster is going to go beyond, and then it's going to get to the point where we have to mask more. While I do not agree with that approach, and I think it's our immune systems and other things that are causing this cluster, I'm wondering if that can be something we can do so that we can minimize the mask time.
Yep. We are in the process. There's an application process. You have to be certified in order to do testing in our nurse's office. However, that said, although we have the applications out, we simply do not have the capacity in our nurse's office, and I think Marcia could speak to that. They're filled with students we're sending home because they're sick, or we're doing contact tracing nonstop. So we're getting poised to be able to do that. We don't have the capacity right now.
No, and I understand. My other thought had been talking to people who are dealing with parents. Unfortunately, parents lie. Pickup patrol would be nice because it makes us think about before sending our child to school. Would there be a possibility if the school got the COVID funding for those home tests that they stood in the hallway in that little vestibule and they did it themselves and they showed the negative test to you because parents lie? I just think that we need to do something more so that we reduce the amount of mask time. Because it's just going to go on and on and on because of the amount of time that it's taking for tests to come back and because, sadly, parents lie.
Thank you, Megan. Okay, public comment closed. Do we have proposals for future agenda? No? No? No, you spoke. Each person gets one speak, so we're good. No?
And you don't have to divulge any private information or anything like that. How many children have actually been admitted into the ICU in Weare school systems from COVID, and how many children have actually passed?
Okay, thank you. We don't share that information. Do we have proposals for future agenda?
I'd like to add masks on to the next agenda.
Okay.
I'll second it.
No, that's fine. Anything else? Okay, do we have a non-public today? No? Next meeting is on the 19th of October. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I think we can do this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, good. Thank you.